In the past, a lot of you guys have asked us about how we warm up with our rifles and our pistols, and I think a lot of people tend to overcomplicate it. So today, we're out here on the range with Carughi, and we're gonna be talking about how we warm up with our rifles and our pistols. Let's get into it. So Carughi, we're gonna be down here, obviously showing some people how to warm up with their pistols and rifles. So I know I probably have my method. You probably have the way you do stuff.
I do it a lot similar.
Just give a rundown, give a quick rundown.
So like, actually come up here, I'll show you. So if you wanna draw it out, this is how I do it. I'll make a 1-inch box, but I'll use these corners of the zones. So typically that's around roughly 1 inch, and I'll fill that in so it's easier to see. Same thing, and I'll go all the way through, and I'll make those, you know, it's a triangle, but I'll make squares here. I'll fill them in so I can see them, and that's how I do my holdovers. I'll do a quick 0. I'll do it just a little bit of a bigger box if I need to shoot at distance for like 100 yards for a 0 on a red dot, and that's how I work my holdovers. So typically, like on a gun like this, 10.5 inch or 11.5 inch with any kind of optic, really, you're generally going to hold right here with a 50 or 100 yard 0 to hit here. So that's how I go through and do it. So when you drew that, I was like, fuck yeah. Sharpie and cardboard is pretty much all I do. So like this was my quick 0 like 20 minutes ago. So.
Yeah, and what I like to do to start, like obviously I like banging on steel targets. We manufacture steel targets, so you guys know this.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
See, he didn't know that when he came up here. But I start out on cardboard. And the reason I want to start out on cardboard is for that trackability. I just want to make sure that what I'm doing, my inputs are correct. And then I can move on to steel as we get into warming up and actually moving, doing some distance shooting, things like that. So I would say we start at 5 yards, and let's work some mechanical offset first with the rifles. Let's just start off with that.
Yeah, I just got this 0, so I don't have mine. So
let's go right here.
Cardboard's great for accountability and analyzing.
Why don't you walk us through kind of what you would do to work that mechanical offset, and then I'll talk about.
All right, so I'm gonna take the top left square, and I'm gonna take my point of aim, point of impact. So I'm gonna place my reticle center of that square and get my impact real quick. So that's gonna be a little low, obviously. Mechanical offset, holdover, height over bore, all those words that are fancy and awesome. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my reticle, I'm gonna put it exactly where I just had it, and I'm gonna measure it again. So this is a Primary Arms MD25 Gen 2. It's got an ACSS reticle, so I got a couple different dots in there to measure off of. So now I'm going to hold over, and I'm going to take my point of aim higher on the cardboard so that my point of impact is in the black square. So I'm going to look, I'm going to line it up. It's just below the very bottom dot. Press a shot, and it's right inside the black. Now that was my, what did you say the yardage was, 10?
This is about 5 yards.
5 yards,
here.
5. So that's what my 5 yard holdover is. And then I'd go to whatever distance is, and I'd use a 2nd square, 3rd square, 4th square. So in 2 rounds, you got your holdovers. Yep. And you can take the reticle, use a Sharpie, and draw it up there and mark it so you know for later.
Yep. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll just put 1 round.
You look so much cooler than me.
So you can see, well, you guys can't see, but same deal. I have a low impact because we have a mechanical offset. Like he was saying, there's a physical difference between the plane of your red dot and the barrel. And a lot of people overcomplicate that. We've done videos on that before. So at certain distances based on your 0, and your 0 is going to change how that impact happens, what you would have to compensate at different distances. And that's why Carughi's saying you've got 4 squares. It's probably not just good enough to stand here at 5 yards and say that's my mechanical offset, because that's going to change based on the distance that you're at and your 0 that you have on your rifle. So now I'll do the exact same thing, hold a little higher. And now I didn't land it dead center on the square, but
bottom right in the box.
Bottom right on the box.
So that's within a 1 inch square at whatever distance. So I mean, if you want to look at it like acceptable sight picture, dude, you're fine. Like I tell a lot of people that variance is within the movement of your trigger finger.
Yeah. And then as I'm talking about warming up, so you've established your holdover right here. Yep. Now, obviously, for sake of time, we're not going to go back out to 25, 30 yards and do the same thing. But what would your next step be at this point? So you've got your mechanical offset. What would your recipe be for warming up with your rifle at this point?
So I don't shoot this gun very often. And the thing that's different about it compared to a lot of my others is usually I run brakes This isn't. So what I'm gonna have to work on with this is recoil control and recoil management, since it has a little more. So I would start doing drills of like a low ready to or high ready to 2 shots to 3 shots on target. And I would start, like, say with that center box I drew for zeroing, I would use that as my acceptable sight picture. So, and that's because, again, I don't shoot this gun often. It has a different thing on there. So I'll just knock it out where you just were. I'll do 3 rounds and see how well my recoil management's doing, but I'll do it as like a steady pace so I'm not pushing myself too fast, so I can make sure I'm feeling the gun. So you can actually see it, I can feel it, how it rocks me more. So I'm a little low, I forgot to use my holdover, so I'll do it again a little faster. And that's what I would do with this. So I can pick it up, I can get a little more recoil control. And as that recoil is moving me in my wobble zone, I'm figuring out where the gun is being driven by watching my sights as I'm doing it. And I'm figuring out how to control that to make this gun work for what I need up here.
Yeah. And another thing too, I'm gonna walk over here to this fresh target. So I have another box over here too, but one of the things that I like to do, because my objective with my warm up is to sort of re-familiarize myself with my gun. That sounds weird, but I come out here with a purpose. My range day, I want to work on a certain thing. But the warm-up is also an opportunity to show you what you might need to work on that particular range day.
Cold shooter, like I was talking about earlier. It's just like working out in the gym or whatever. You don't want to just go right to a personal record. You got to warm up. And the shooting's a perishable skill. The first thing to go is your trigger control. It's the most fine control we have. So, dude, yeah, warm up. Like, absolutely. It's dumb if you don't. So
I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do is on the head box. So sometimes what I like to do is like a high ready or low ready and do strings of 3 rounds into the A zone on the USPSA cardboard target. These are just standard USPSA cardboard targets. Very inexpensive. This is not something that's super crazy expensive for you to get, but you don't need to use those either. We're drawing little black squares. You know, you could use that as well. And you could have a piece of paper, a paper plate with a square on it. It doesn't really matter. You can work these fundamentals. But I'm going to do a high ready on the beep into the head box. Now, let's actually talk about this. So right away, first round was okay, but I'm marginally compensating too much. Like my dot, I felt that as I was going on that second and third shot. I'm up here. So talk about that mechanical offset. I'm compensating way too much up here. So realistically, as we saw over there, when I aimed on the dot, I'm about 1.5 inches low. So if I would have placed that right here on this edge, I would have landed my shots in the center.
And that's one thing that I think is good about drawing the squares right here. Typically right across these shoulders is about 1.5 inches. So if you think about it like this, if you place your point of aim here, generally speaking, you're gonna hit inside your square.
Yep.
So it gives you an idea as a reference on the target and in your optic.
And that's one thing that I wanted to show you guys too, because like he's saying here, if you have this one in the center of the box here, you also have some margin of error to track what you're doing wrong. Whereas like if I miss 2 shots up here, what did I do? You know what I mean?
Give him a little haircut.
The trackability here is, it's harder for me to decipher what I've done, what my input was and what that result was. So the next thing that I also like to do, talking about your recoil management, is some basic strings of fire too, to work that. Now you worked mechanical offset, but I also like to get a baseline of like what a 3-round shot into the A zone, like giving me a bigger acceptable distance or target size, but also tracking my recoil
so
management.
what you're talking about is acceptable sight picture. The acceptable sight picture based off of what you're doing and your skill level is gonna change. So 1 inch slow fire at 5 yards is a pretty good acceptable sight picture to analyze how you are doing and what you need to work on. If we do the same thing at 50 yards, is that really acceptable? Probably not. So you could make that acceptable sight picture a little bigger. And that's a concept that comes from the precision shooting world. Just because it's a 6-inch target at 600 yards, you're shooting a half-minute gun, so you can technically shoot a 3-inch group at that distance. Do you need to be in the center of that target? No, you need to be 3 inches within it.
Yeah.
So,
and we talk about that a lot in the hunting applications. We were talking about predator hunting last night. Depending on the animal that you're going after, you have that maximum point blank range. You know, let's say we have a 12-inch tall target that we know anything within that zone is an acceptable hit. Based on what my application is, I don't necessarily need to stack all of those rounds in this tight little tiny group, but it's application driven. And I think people forget that as well. But when we're doing these warm-ups, it's that opportunity to see, you know, what do I have to work on? And the rifles, I don't know about you, I tend to keep them simpler, I would say.
Yeah.
The pistol is where I feel like when I come out cold, I have this like laundry list of things that I'm like, okay, these are the things that I need to work on.
You have less points of contact on your pistol to your body, so and it's the easiest thing to mess up because you have to pay attention to every little thing in your hand and how that's inducing movement on the gun.
Right.
And you're trying to line this thing up out in front of your face instead of having that pivot point of your shoulder to line it up. So yeah, pistol's the hardest firearm to do, and that's why I start with people there.
Yeah.
Just let's learn with pistol, and when you get to rifle and long gun, you're going to be amazed how much easier it feels.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to go back here to 10 yards. Now we're going to use that full A zone, and I'm just going to burn it down with 6 rounds. I'll do a low ready this time, and I do like to have variations of high ready, low ready. And normally, guys, just for full clarity, I would be spending more time during these different warm-ups up close. And I have a target on our website that I use every range day for my warm-up. It just has various drills, different size circles. Sometimes I'll do some high readies just into the head box. You know, if I want to work on presenting the gun, having a consistent engagement with the rifle every single time, those are some of those drills that I'll do. But we'll do 6 rounds, A zone on the beep. I'll talk about the time. Right now, the time's not
it's the
most
measurement.
important thing.
It doesn't matter how fast you're going.
It's something for me, like as I'm progressing, I have a binder when I go shooting. So in that binder, I have drills that I use consistently for warm up, but then also trackability. And I do write those times down so I can see where I'm at as I go forward. So we'll do a load ready on this, and we'll go down range. Trigger freeze. 2.52 on that. I'm just analyzing some things. 0.7 first shot. So you can see right there, so I went from a 0.22 to a 0.66 split. You guys obviously saw that. Let's go down range. But what I wanted to illustrate on this particular drill, I established that to me, the acceptable target was the A zone. I do have 2 Charlies. Let me go back and do that one more time. Do a low ready on the beep. .181, 0.64, 27, 24, 21.
Oh yeah, much better.
But I fixed my issues.
Now, what was your issue specific?
Specifically on that drill right there, as soon as I had that trigger hang up, I drove that gun low.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that happened, but
what it looked like to me, and obviously you're going to know better because you're the one doing it, is that you were overstressing, pressing your gun into your shoulder with your right hand,
yeah,
which is going to pull that trigger finger back. As far as keeping that hand just a little, not loose per se, but a little more relaxed, and controlling that gun with this hand more, either sport hand. And that a lot of times that'll just cause people to press too hard and not come back off.
That's a good point too, that a lot of people don't realize how much work is done.
Yeah. Use your left hand more, guys. It'll surprise you.
So do you want to do the same thing?
Yeah, I'll knock it out. You want me to do this one or that one?
That one's clean, so let's go over to that one.
Yeah. All right. Keep the same distance.
Yeah, ballpark right around here.
Yeah, all right.
Just say it's on you. If you want to do a beep, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Time wasn't the important thing on that.
All right, we good? All
Yep.
Right. 6 rounds, you said?
6 rounds, yeah.
Yep, I fucked that up too. All right.
It's this Pennsylvania cold.
2.4, 0.3, 0.2. Yeah, it's about 0.11 slower than what I normally do. And I got, well, shit, we didn't mark them off from earlier. You got your marker on you?
Yeah. I was going to say, the mechanical officer, you're like, oh no.
I was playing with it earlier.
What am I doing?
Call it a mulligan, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Mark
We can
them
call
all
one.
Yeah. All right, let's try that again. I know I definitely dropped one of those outside the A zone on the bottom left, though. All right. all the extra movement to make it look cool.
There you go. It's all about looking cool.
Yeah, that's why we do this. .98. Let's see here. 0.5. Yeah, these things kind of mess up in the cold a little bit, so they're getting some funky numbers like
850. So I just want to let the record know that Rugi just ran 850.4 bill drill.
All right,
it's a new record. It's flow.
Yeah, but if they got all in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yep.
So
all his rounds are in.
Is yours still on? Did it catch the last 6 rounds?
No, I don't know what. That is weird though.
Yeah, I've noticed in the cold these tend to do that. But yeah, so.
But yeah, those are my primary focus when I'm with my rifle, just to start, just to get the basic performance line of where I'm at, what I need to work on. That's pretty much it. Now I'll mix in some other drills at different distances like we were talking about. Sometimes I'll do some turns because I want to work how I can present the gun consistently, get engaged with the gun and land rounds on target. But again, that's where you start getting into other drills with other purposes behind them.
There's one thing you can do, and I don't know if you guys noticed when I got squared up to the targets, I squared up to the target. So the second I'm getting ready on my drill, all I need to do is bring my gun straight up and my optic is right on target. It's your natural point of aim.
Yeah.
Natural point of aim, whether you're in prone, sitting, kneeling, whatever position you're in. If you're laying in bed, there's gonna be one. So get your natural point of aim to give you the best advantage possible.
And would you argue that one of the best ways they could learn that, dry fire?
Yeah.
Figuring that out?
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that at all. Like if you're arguing that, then you're not doing that. You don't know. Like it's not an argument. Come on, guys.
To me, that's a
moot point.
The biggest thing. So like we've got warm up on the range, but what are you warming up like at home? And to me, the biggest thing that I did in my shooting was take some dry fire seriously throughout the years. Yeah. And when we talk about that natural point of aim, being able to have a rifle you're familiar with that presents in a way that you're familiar with and be able to do it without even thinking and have a reasonable level of performance every time you come up to the range.
What I like to tell people is the reason that you train on these is because if you actually need it, you don't want to have to think about this because you have to think about everything going on in front of you.
Yeah.
So everything going on here needs to become subconscious, needs to be like you're walking in the dark and you know every corner.
Yeah.
Because you have other things to consider. So yeah, absolutely dry fire. The only thing that you're not getting out of dry fire is that actual recoil control, recoil management, but there's plenty of systems out there that can mimic that pretty well too. Plus, you can get in a lot of range time just chilling at home, playing with your gun, and it keeps that, like I said earlier, perishable skill. Trigger control is the first thing to go because it's the finest, right? So if you get your hands on your gun every day, make sure it's clear, safe, condition 4 and all that, and you're pressing the trigger into a safe direction and you're getting that feeling, your hands will keep that feeling.
And I've found that over the years, manipulating guns, working on them even in our little armory area, playing with guns, literally playing with guns, keeping your hands on them gets you familiar. Like I carry my Glock every day and it's like I'm at home every time I have my hands on the gun. I know where everything's at. I know how it works. I know how it feels when it's right, when it's wrong. Same thing with my rifles. I know what they're like when they're clean, when they're dirty, when I'm doing my part, when I'm sucking that day. You can learn a lot just by touching your guns and dry firing. But I think we should move on to pistols.
Just do the same thing with pistol? Or
yeah,
what you got?
I want to hear what you have, what your process looks like.
So actually, I would start off pistol the same way if I wasn't familiar with it.
I'm going to ditch this.
Like, with my pistol that I'm running right now, I know where it's going to hit. So I'm not really worried about it. And also a little warm up prior to. But honestly, I would just run the same thing and see where it's at. So I've already shot some pistol today. So I'm already a little warm on it. So let's get you going.
I'll put a round on that square at 5 yards.
Yeah. First thing you got to do, environment, snow, your dot's got to be super bright. Are you cross-eye dominant?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm right hand, right eye. So I'm a little low, aiming dead center on that dot. Do the same thing.
Top of the box.
I put it in the same hole.
Oh, you're going for the third one. Gotcha.
There we go.
Yeah, so most pistols with red dots, typically on a 1-inch square, put that dot on the top of the box and you're going to hit center. A majority of them. There are some others that are a little funky that have like randomly high height over bores, but generally speaking, so it's going to be the same.
Let's go. I'm going to show them real quick. So the first round that I did, I put there. And I just didn't hold quite at the edge, and I put a second round in that hole too. But third one here. I put that dot just like you were saying, right along the top of this beautifully, perfectly drawn square. You know, I was a draftsman in the past. I told you that, and I drew steel buildings and structures.
Do I have
this
a career?
is like, I would hire you for drafting. All right, you can go ahead and
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm not as good as you, so I'm gonna need the big square in the center.
He's being all humble over here. Right above the top.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, right at the bottom of the box. Yeah, let's check it out.
Go ahead.
Oh, nope, top right. So actually this is hitting dead on right here.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
was
putting it right.
gonna say your point of impact with that right now. I'd toss you a Glock mag, but
Yeah, I had to be fancy. I got a new holster I gotta get worn in.
there it is.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Yeah, that's point of impact, which is different than what it used to be, so. But I have a shot.
But you could right now, like, let's say somebody sees that and they're like, hey, I'm kind of confused about that. Why is it doing that thing? So then you would determine what your zero you want it to be. You know what I mean? You could determine what that is, and that will affect that mechanical offset.
Yeah, so like I actually got asked the question last night on my drive up here on Instagram is, you know, how do it's my first time, how do I zero a red dot? I was like, that's actually a great question that not a lot of people ask, and I've watched a lot of people do it, and they kind of screwed up. Like a majority of people will get at whatever distance. I zero mine at 25 yards.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of people take a knee, rest it on something. That works really well.
Yeah.
But I try to take out any human error that's involved. So I'll actually get my tripod with a hog saddle, and I'll take an extra mag so it'll look like this, and I'll clamp it in because you need the space. So it's just like that. And I'll lock it in there with the tripod, and I'll take out any human error, and I'll just get it on, and I'll do a quick group, and I'll leave that gun sitting there, and I'll zero it from there.
Yeah. I was gonna say that if you didn't say that, I use my tripod, which sounds crazy because you got your pistol and you're like strapping it into a tripod. And I don't know what the ATF thinks about that. I just created a rifle.
But yeah, I do that and it eliminates all the human error.
Yeah, it's because you're inputting into your gun. And as we're doing the warm-ups, you're noticing the inputs that you are creating. And when you're zeroing, man, that's a time that we're not racing. You know, I see a lot of people zeroing really sloppy. You know, they're just not taking the time.
It's the most important thing you do.
Right, because that, you know, like let's say you rush and you just like throw your AR-15 on the ground. I'm not bashing anybody that does it. I'm just on my mag. I don't have a solid rest. The back of the gun's not rested right. You know, I don't have any support on the rifle. And I put a poor zero into this gun. Every single thing that I do with that rifle, every other drill is off, but I can't tell. Well, I know because I did a sloppy job zeroing it. But if you don't know any better, your inputs, you might be saying, oh man, I'm hitting right every single time. Yeah. I'm doing something wrong. You might be doing things right, and now you just have a mechanical issue with your firearm that is leading to a bad result.
Yeah. And that is, honestly, that's not the issue of the firearm. That was the person.
Yeah.
That was the shooter. It's like if you're doing long gun stuff, or it's an LPVO on a 16-inch carbine or whatever, you try to shoot far, but you have a sloppy zero, and you went through and you got nerdy with the ballistics calculators, and you're like, oh, it's not hitting where it says. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
You, at the very foundation of it, messed up your zero.
Yeah. Yeah, and people take that for granted. I know now we're on a tangent of zeros, but it matters because, like, let's say I'm shooting any distance. I have my chronograph at home. I do my hand loads for my more precision. I'm not a precision shooter, but more of my hunting precision loads. I hand load them myself. I chronograph them myself, and I put them in my ballistics calculator. And I might find that my maximum point blank range means I can zero at 36 yards and impact out to 300, depending on the caliber, without adjusting on the fly with my scope. But if at 36 yards, I'm a quarter inch
to the
left, I'm now throwing rounds at 300 yards, so far out of whack. You know, everything can change, and so take that seriously. This is a lesson.
Yeah, and then that means you're not being a responsible shooter, which,
especially at distance.
We need more responsible shooters.
You're sending bullets so far out, you got to know. But anyway, back onto the pistols. One of my favorite drills, and I want to talk to you about this. I want to get your input too. Is presenting the pistol. And there's a lot of other drills that you can do, but I'm gonna walk actually over back to my target. I'm just going to present and put 2 rounds into the A zone, and then I'm gonna do the same thing in the head box. So I think I marked all my hits.
If you didn't, you just put more holes in the same holes.
And bigger holes.
Yeah.
So I'll just aim off target. Nobody can see the snow splash.
The beauty of editing.
So on the beep, just from a compressed. That was a 1.09. Let me do one more. Again, this is a large target. Right away.
Bottom left in the sea.
Sight picture. And I felt that too. Bad grip at the beginning.
Yep.
Did not have the dot where I wanted it to be, and I still squeezed a shot.
So
bad input totally.
Two classes that I teach, pistol analytics, rifle analytics, and the entire point of them is to learn how to analyze as you're going, so that you can fix things. Because if you take a bad shot, but you need to make a good shot, and it's in a fast time frame, you have to know how to analyze that. That's the mark of a good shooter. But also that skill goes into life too, into personal life, shit like that.
Yeah.
Recognize what you're doing and fix it right away.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna do the same thing, head box. So now we have a higher stakes target, much smaller target. So a little bit more time. One's in, one's just low. Let me do it one more time. One high, one in the box. So the reason I like doing that is especially with red dots. I mean, iron sights, this is applicable too.
Oh, 100%.
But as I started getting into, and you guys can see, so here's my rounds, and I threw one high. But as I started getting into red dots, people get kind of freaked out because they're like fishing for their dot. You know, they're fishing for their dot. I learned that hand input on the pistol, proper hand input, proper practice with dry fire, getting familiar with it, solved all of that. You know, I had friends that were showing me that certain pressure on your hands can hurt, harm, help.
So yeah, that's a good point to make. So what may be proper for you could be improper for me.
Right.
And it's induction of movement on the gun. So I have small guy hands, like they are.
I think they look adequate.
Thanks, man. They'll make you look big. No, so if I press, I'll clear this out real quick so I don't do anything stupid. So if I press my trigger and at the same time I squeeze my pinky, what tends to happen is the gun will go down low right. If I do my ring finger and squeeze as I press the trigger, it'll go low left in an arc. So different things like that make a difference. So you have to be able to keep your hand consistent and steady pressure. Think about like your foot on the gas pedal, right? You can hold it at 60 miles an hour for fucking hours.
Unless you drive behind Brenton.
Unless you, yeah, of course. You have to be able to do the same thing with your hand as you're pressing your trigger straight into the rear, right?
What's the best way for people to, during their warm-ups or during their personal training, to analyze in that way? When is the time to do that?
Whenever you have free time. Yeah. Like, so I'll put it like this, if you want to swing around here. If you take a 1-inch square and you're trying to put a round in the center, the difference of hitting in the center to 1.5 inches left is this minor movement of the trigger finger. It's really, really tiny, so I'm gonna try to do it. All right, see that little movement right there? Now the contact from my skin to the trigger has not changed, but how the bone inside my finger moves is changing. So if I take it, pull it back or push it left, that's gonna change from here to here, from here to here. At 3 yards, 1.5 inches either way.
Yeah.
So recognizing that minimal of a difference is going to mean success or not, and then being able to self-actualize to that degree is going to be the best thing you can do. And one way you can do to help that, if you can't do it in the moment, video it. Put your phone up, duct tape it to a wall, stand next to it, whatever. Find the angles that you like with the lighting you love.
For the gram.
And do it.
For Instagram. No.
Yeah, right.
We did a whole video on that. So we did a video where we showed people that you have this, I don't have it on me, but you have a powerful tool in your pocket every single day that allows you to record videos. And sometimes slow-mo videos, like it's epic. If you got any iPhone really, you can record a slow-mo video.
This thing records up to 100 times, or zooms up to 100 times.
Yeah. So you can quite literally watch yourself back in slow motion and see exactly what you're doing. And a lot of people take that for granted because we just like to film stuff for fun and to post it or whatever, but use that as an analytical tool. Yeah. So
when I was in Iraq, I would do that in my room, clear everything out, set up my phone, slow-mo, and I'd go through it just to get better.
All right, so one of the things that I want to hear your opinion on this. I don't focus a whole lot on just reloads. I don't focus a whole lot on, at this point, right here for the warm-up, on single shots with my pistol. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what is your methodology?
I would say it really depends on what you're doing. So why are reloads important? It's not just because they look cool and there's a lot going on and it can be really difficult. It's because at the time you need a reload, it is the most important thing in your life, right? So they are absolutely great things to work on. However, if you look at it like this, say you have 2 magazines, these are what, 17 rounders? The math says that's probably like 40 rounds, right?
34, but close.
No, close. No big deal.
So draftsman, mathematician.
If you have 34 rounds between 2 mags, you have 1 reload between that.
Yeah.
Versus 34 shots. So if you want to look at it like, how do I quantify those numbers? But then again, quantifying time, like if I don't have rounds going down range or I'm not in cover, I need to get that gun back up.
Yeah.
So it's, what are you training for? Be deliberate. So if I need to train reloads, like for me, for example, I haven't been shooting very much in the last several months. I'm probably trash at it, and that's something I should definitely work on. Draw a dot on my mag well so I can click it, identify it, and get it going. But also, I haven't shot very much, so my fine motor control is down, just like we saw on the pistol. Usually I knock that out for a shot, no big deal. So I have both to work on because of where I'm at. So people that aren't doing this a lot or rarely ever, you're going to have those things to work on, but you have to be deliberate. That's my methodology about it.
And that's kind of the same way that I view things. I try to not focus in on one aspect and just hyper analyze to the ends of the earth, because I find naturally as I'm going through the range day, I have those other opportunities to work on that skill if I have a clear game plan and I'm tracking what I'm doing in my notebook. Yeah. And that's where I've found the most amount of growth. And when it came to reloads and being able to manipulate the gun, talking about being familiar with our firearms during our warm-ups and stuff, dry fire was probably the most important thing that I've done in any of my shooting. Obviously, the big downside to dry fire for me is there's no recoil impulse happening with the firearm, and you're not actually, I mean, you're getting a trigger manipulation, but you're missing a piece of that equation on the range. So you still have to go do the supplemental.
You still have to finish it off. And I think one of the biggest things people always forget about when it comes to dry fire is, like, for example, we got multiple targets out here. You can set up multiple targets in your home, put a bunch of stickers on the wall. And now you're working transitions without shooting anything, right? You're working those eyes getting there. You're working your hands getting there and gaining your sights and then pressing the trigger without anything. You can do a lot of really cool high-level shooting in your home.
Yeah, and learn a lot.
Condition 4, cleared out, no ammo. Let's just not have any accidents.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you always throw that little thing in where it's like, hey, make sure those mags are empty. It's important, kids. Don't shoot holes through your wall, or your grandmother or mom will come up and not feed you dinner that night.
I like dinner.
All right, so I'm gonna do another pistol drill here, and then I think what I'm gonna do is come back after this and we'll do some transitions on some steel here.
All right.
But I'm gonna draw, fire 6 rounds on this target from this distance. I think I marked all my hits, but...
You want me to beep you?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go for it. On you.
All right. Shooter stand by.
There were a couple things going on there that I noticed right away. Very bad presentation of the firearm. Had that trigger freeze happening again on that particular run. Also talked about organic reloads and absolutely trashed a reload in front of everybody. So hey, this is what one takes do. I want to do that run and actually get 6 rounds on target.
All right.
But those are the things that happen, like as you're doing these warm-ups, stuff happens. And last night we recorded a podcast talking about how sometimes stuff just goes to crap and you have to analyze it, look at what you did bad, and then just go back at it instead of just...
You have to keep doing it.
Yeah, I used to, dude, when I first started shooting pistols, and I keep saying this, we did a video on this because I think it matters to everybody, I sucked. At this distance, I wouldn't have hit that target.
Oh, really?
And I didn't have anybody teaching
I've seen a lot of that.
But that's normal. And at the same time, now obviously that means you're doing something improper and there's some skills you have to learn, but you have to be disciplined enough to say, okay, I'm gonna work myself through the sucky period, the part where I feel like I'm just trash, and then build on to
Bad day at the range is still a good day.
Heck yeah. All right, on you.
Shooter stand by.
Little better, but as I presented that gun, I'm fishing for that dot. So typically at this point, again, it's been months since I've shot pistols, but dry fire helps me out immensely with that. Or even just standing here and presenting my pistol.
You're still putting all your shots on the body.
But just working that basic presentation. But yeah, let's walk down range. I want to see where, I know I have 2 in the Charlie. So 3 in the Charlie. The rest in the Alpha. But I felt that as soon as my pistol came out, my dot was over here.
Yeah.
So.
But why do you think that is?
For me, right away when I drew it out of the pistol, my grip of that pistol and presentation was total trash. Absolute trash. I readjusted my grip as soon as that happened and pulled that dot back.
As you came up, you had to drive over to the target. You were forgetting your natural point of aim. So if you were paying attention to your feet, you were just like this. And the second you draw, you dip your hips and turn your head.
Yep.
Instead, you want to, not to, like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings.
You're not hurting my feelings. This is what this is about.
If you're learning,
so,
when I was learning this stuff, I wish I had someone to do this because it just makes it all faster. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, if get in that position, get that natural point of aim, keep your head straight up, because you want to bring, like, example, if you use your imagination brain, my eye to the target's straight line, intersect that line with your sights.
Yeah.
So you're not bringing your sights up and then trying to find them. Get good at intersecting that line with your sights, and it should be right there.
Yeah. So what you need is a personal Carughi. So we're gonna clone and replicate. And
hell yeah, I'll hunt him.
But you all have to hang out with each other. Like you'd probably.
I'm probably. Is it? Oh, that's a dirty question. I don't know if I can ask that.
All right, you go ahead and just, I guess, draw 6 rounds.
Draw. Okay. Let's have you beat me. This showing split times of 700 seconds. So.
My current time here is 5:17.9. So.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
But
you marked them all, right?
What's that?
You marked
I did
them?
mark them.
Oh, damn it. I was just going to shoot off target.
Can't do that. All right, you ready?
I had a little hang up. I came up a little to the right. I think it's because I was trying to mentally work around that, as far as I didn't want to knock it and throw me off.
But they still, I saw every single round in the Alphas there.
Yeah, it threw me off when I came to come back up, so I had to find my target again. 2, 3, 4, 5.
I know all of them landed there. I watched it happen, so you're good. You're good. You're good. But that's. So I guess explain in a string of fire like that. What are people working on with their pistol?
So it's really, there's one thing that I find important for me, and I found it important for other shooters, is what is going through your mind as you're pressing that trigger.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I know mentally with me, I can, as I'm pressing the trigger, I'm thinking about my trigger, and then my sights are off.
Yeah.
Or if I'm thinking about my sights too much, trigger freeze. Like, where are you placing your mind? So I try to think about it like this. This may sound kind of, Confucius to say, but I try to keep my mind on my sights and my finger on my trigger. I try to think that. So as I'm doing it, I find that rhythm in how my finger needs to move, which can be translated to other things, and keeping my eyes on my sight. So I'm watching where my sight is going in its wobble zone, and I'm pressing it in that rhythm as I need it to that speed. But if I lose that, like I said, if I lose that thought of my sights, where are my sights, typically I'll see my rounds going off.
Yeah. So at this point, typically on a range day, this is where I start doing other drills and things like that. But this video is about just giving some people a couple basic tips on warm up. So I think we're gonna keep shooting. We're gonna have some fun back at distance, bang some steel. But I hope that this little portion of video, I know it was very basic, but hopefully it was helpful to people.
Dude, there was so much just going on, like you can pull shit out of it for years.
So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. Where can everybody find you on the social
The socials, shoot a Carughi on Instagram or Weapon Snatcher. Both of them come up if I'm not shadow banned. And YouTube is Weapon Snatcher as well, but also have my website, weaponsnatcher.com. You can find all the merch, training classes, and everything going on there. Like this year I have, or actually next month I'm teaching in Texas. So there's classes up for that. And then in June in Colorado, I'm doing a combined pistol and long gun course with Frank Gallia, Sniper's Hide. So that should be good. So.
Sweet. Well, we're going to get to shooting, guys. Hope it was helpful. Subscribe. Don't be a weenie.